Welcome to the Bold Analysis. In this video, I want us to ask some 4 critical questions in relation to this subsidized fertilizer scandal. Whether it is a scandal or whether it is hot air, we'll try to find out, because today, since this evening, I've been trying to gather more information on this. So where are we starting? Towards the end of July, the Russian President Putin announced that fertilizers that had accumulated in their ports due to the sanctions, sanctions that were imposed on Russia, will be donated to the developing countries as a humanitarian aid. Remember, this was fertilizer that was supposed to be exported to the AU countries, but because of the sanctions, it could not. They could not leave the ports. Now, on that end, Uralchem, a company that manufactures minerals and potash fertilizers, announced plans to offer and distribute these fertilizers to the African countries. And the first shipment was to arrive in Togo, 25 million tons of that fertilizer. And according to the articles that I've been reading here, some of the countries that were to benefit were Kenya, Togo, Mozambique, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is also in that list. Maybe I've forgotten it. But there were also talks, because that was supposed to benefit the countries in Africa. So during inauguration, that is what had been announced. And of course, there is no confirmation to the receipt of arrival of the said fertilizers in Togo. But that was their position. So when William Ruto announced that they were going to subsidize fertilizers from 6.9 million to not 6.9, from the 6,900 Kenyan shillings to 3,500, Rigathi Gachagua came out and flagged off an agriculture, a fertilizer subsidy program under the Ministry of Agriculture. And that fertilizer was supposed to be distributed to the farmers through the National Cereals and Produce Board, capping the number of bags in the subsidy program to be 1.4 million bags. So the first dispatch was actually done earlier this week when William Ruto was in the US. So people have questioned, and there are many factors that have emerged, that do we really have a subsidy, or we are selling a fertilizer that was donated to us? We'll try to find out. But then today, I think on Tuesday, this media report emerged. What was a press briefing from a company, the Uralchem company in Russia, stating that they had decided to give Kenya, or rather that they were regretting a decision by the Kenyan authorities to sell their fertilizer. This is part of what was in that we needed to sing there. A solid reputation and transparency of business is key to a company's success. We strictly observe applicable laws, adhere to equal competition principles, and continuously support and improve corporate culture. We therefore, with immediate effect, recall the sale of our donations and ask Kenyan farmers to boycott all efforts to sell our donations in the Kenyan market. The tone of that press briefing first tells you that I don't think that is a corporate communication person seated to write such a statement. Now, before even Russian embassy flagged it, personally, I saw it and I just dismissed it because who was the recipient of that press briefing? If someone is raising a press briefing in Russia, because this company is based in Russia, if you look at that press briefing, Appuccini at the footer of it, that address there is more of Russian address, not in Kenya, not a Kenyan office. And so who was supposed to read it? It was simply for social media consumption. But I want to put a disclaimer here. This is not the kind of a propaganda that can be produced in the streets. That is the truth. This is not a propaganda that a blogger in Kenya will just sit in his laptop and produce and make. No, there must be above. This must be above board, and someone is privy to something that he wants to reveal or wants to make public to the country. Now, today, the Russian embassy has responded and flagged that letter as fake. But what they are not explaining, or rather what they are not denying or accepting, is whether Kenya received a donation from Russia. If you read the tone of the Russian, the rejoinder from Russia, from the Russian embassy, many fake news on fertilizers, Russian fertilizers, are circulating in local social media. The Embassy of Russian Federation hereby requests all users to verify information on Russian fertilizers in Kenya on official media resources of the embassy. So they are simply flagging that they're actually flagging off that media briefing that the fertilizers that are being sold by the Kenyan government were the ones that were donated. But I want to be very categorical and just ask some 4 questions. These questions will help us make a very good interpretation of what exactly we are dealing with. Before we do that, kindly subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, and like our video. And we remind you about scholarsbean.com, education website that allows you to sell and buy books and other educational materials at affordable costs, because some of them are recycled, refurbished, and reused materials. So what you can do is, this website is one of the best for you. Now, most of you had really signed up, and they're all still signing up. The link, this is the link there. You sign up and post an ad, post a book. Just take a photo of the book, and the sign up, use the referral link. You receive an email in your email address that you use there. Then through the email, you shall verify and get to your account. Then you shall navigate through the website. It's very easy, very simple steps. You are going to just customize your ad post, the price and the category, either secondary, primary, tertiary, or university. And again, with that, someone who is interested in the product will get back to you to buy. And you can now complete the transaction. Remember, it's a free website, so you're not going to be charged for that service. Now, question that I have asked my good friends, that what was the model of the subsidy? And to best understand, let's go to the fuel. How the fuel subsidy is done is that oil importing and marketing companies that are in the oil industry buy oil, government pays money to them. So if a liter is to go at 130, at 180, government pays some 20 or 30 shillings as part of that to the importer, or rather to the importer, or not the manufacturer, the importer of the oil marketing companies per liter, so that they can sell at a less price. So if you look at the one for the fuel, the subsidy program that government was doing with them was actually paying private companies. So that is why there was no limit into the number of the liters of fuel that you can buy in a petrol station, because they've paid on leverage on all that they're importing. Unlike that, what Gachagua flagged was a subsidy program. But on this end, we are not being told that they are not using the private importers in the supply chain. If you look at the oil, if you look at the fertilizer supply chain, you shall find the companies that ETG Limited, Elgon Kenya, there is the Yara Kenya, Agroorganics, Osho, Orbit Chemicals, AfriVentures, and also and so Maya companies, and also so forth, and others. So this on agriculture, they have on the fertilizer, they did not go with the private at the supply chain. But it seems government is offering a fertilizer at 3,600, 1.4 million bags, and is injecting it through in the supply chain through the NCB, the national, not NCB, NCB is my bank account, through the National Cereals and Produce Board. So, what is this that is subsidized? What was the initial price from where government is buying? Where did the ministry buy their fertilizer? So that, and if you talk to people at ATG, someone who works there will tell you how much, where did they buy their fertilizer, so that we can also go and buy and sell to farmers at a lower price. Because they seem to have bought their fertilizer from somewhere, and from the buyer, they got, they paid the subsidy. Who did government pay the subsidy? If 3 billion was released from treasury, 3.5 billion was released from treasury for the subsidy, so who was paid that money? Because on the fuel, the billion that was said were being paid to the oil marketers. But on this one, seems government is giving farmers fertilizers. That question, it's not very clear, and I think someone should just offer it now. I am also, this is also another question that stakeholders in this sector are also asking. What was the rationale? How did you reach at 1.4 million tons? Because it's not enough. Is it that was advisable compared with the farmland during these short rains, or after going through the database of farmers during these short rains, and you realize that 1.4, if it's distributed through the National Produce Board, through the national granaries, it's going to reach. The truth of the matter here is, it's not enough. And even that 1.4, it means a farmer is only going to get it at 100 bags for 50 kg bags, and you have to register as a farmer. So, people who do subsistence farming, are they going to? Not, because it's for commercial farming. So, it's not clear who is it going to receive, because there are farmers that today they're still going to buy fertilizers in the private supply chains, simply because the process and the bureaucratic process of receiving that one is not possible. Does it mean that government had specific number of bags that they could subsidize? Those are the questions. Did Kenya receive any subsidized fertilizer? Did we receive? It may not clear. The country is saying that was given to Africa. Did we receive our share? I think if the minister comes today and someone comes to and say, look here, we didn't receive any subsidized fertilizer, we didn't receive any free fertilizer from any country, this story will be gone. And it will end there. But there's silence over the report while Russian embassy is disturbed to respond is what is making this issue to escalate, because they are silent about it. The moment they'll come and speak out and say, either we received or we didn't receive any donation from Russia, that is it. And if we received a donation from Russia, Where is it? Where is that donation? And I want to tell you something. There could be a gang that were around our former first in command, President Uhuru Kenyatta, that maybe did artificial hoarding, and there were a lot of fertilizer games to create a fictitious delay so that this subsidy will find its way in the fertilizer supply chain. It's more than what catches the eye. We are not talking about maybe not a scandal, but a scandal on the way. Unless the model is explained. That's my bold.